This is Israel Take 3, and I'm David Began. This season has generously been sponsored by the Sclair Family Foundation. Stick with us.
I'm no one special, actually. I just am a former kibbutznik who dreamed big and wanted to kind of see the world.
Actually, I'm going to disagree. That's Eran Gurvich. He's 43, and while he might not see it, he's pretty extraordinary. Eran grew up in a small kibbutz in northern Israel. Like most Israelis, he did his time in the IDF, and like many, he took off traveling once he was done. It took him 20 years before he would make it back home. I first met Eran last November at the Rehab Center for Wounded Soldiers at Sheba Medical Center. I'll dive into more about this place in a future episode, but here's what you need to know for now. There's this deck where soldiers gather when they're not doing their rehab, and that's where I saw him for the first time. Sitting in a wheelchair, dark Ray-Ban aviators on, rolling cigarettes, soaking up the sun. With his intense gaze and this rugged edge, he looked a lot like a young Sean Penn. I sat down, we talked, and he opened up a bit about how he ended up there. I sent him the text the next day, something like, "Hey, great meeting you. I've got this podcast. Any chance you'd want to go on, do an interview?" Radio silence. I waited a few days, tried again, nothing. Then I saw him again on my next visit. To keep a long story short, it took a lot of persistence and a good dose of chutzpah, but he finally agreed. Over the next few months, we actually became friends. I convinced him that he needed to share his story. So we set a time to meet in Tel Aviv one afternoon in February. He sent me the address and mentioned something about the 30th floor. When I walked in, I was shocked. Wow, 360-degree views of the city and a place that looked like it belonged in a luxury magazine. That's when Eran casually mentions that this apartment actually belongs to Miriam Edelson, the billionaire philanthropist and the wife of the late Sheldon Edelson. You see, she lends it to wounded soldiers who are rehabbing at the nearby Sheba hospital. And there was Eran, looking more like Sean Penn than ever, only this time no wheelchair, just a single crutch that he barely used. Here's Eran talking about 20 years ago after he finished his mandatory army service in his early 20s.
I felt like I needed some time out. I went to New York, no agenda or specific plan in mind, and I happened to stay there for about 3 years, kind of doing random jobs.
It was more than just needing some time out. He was actually suffering from intense PTSD. Unfortunately for Eran, his mandatory service was in the early 2000s and fell right smack dab in the middle of the Second Intifada. We all remember those frightening years filled with bus bombings, pizza shops and cafes blowing up in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and a lot of clashes between the army and the Palestinians in towns like Ramallah and Jenin. If you were here then, you remember the fear.
It was a pretty intense time in Israel. I'm sure people remember 2001, 2002 was a huge operation in the West Bank. Terror attacks, suicide bombers, literally every day. That was a pretty intense year. And we took part in the effort of the combat. We were pretty unlucky, actually. We suffered some, how should I put it, unnecessary losses. I think you don't get to interfere with the formula between possible and probable. You're just a part of the statistic. Well, we're just unlucky, I think. But I think that's the nature of war in general. It's a pile of random events. And the main feeling is the lack of control. You can be the perfect soldier. It doesn't matter. When I'm in control, I trust myself. When I'm out of control, it's like a roulette. I think that's the first thing that war taught me.
In Israel, when people say roulette, they're not talking about the casino game. They're talking about something closer to what we call Russian roulette, random, deadly, and way too real.
What were the symptoms that you started noticing?
Very uncharacteristic stuff. Started to smoke weed. I tried different kinds of drugs for the first time in my life, and that was so not me.
He says this as he's rolling a cigarette and adding a little something extra. And I'm like wondering, where exactly in Miriam Edelson's luxury apartment is he going to smoke this thing?
I kind of felt like it's okay, it'll pass. I'm just exploring, right? But it was a sign. Like I remember, I felt pretty much okay, but in a way, I was looking for the edge. It's like deliberately, I wanted to kind of test the limits and the boundaries, and you realize there's a lot of stuff in you that you never allowed to. You never allowed them to pop. You never gave them any kind of expression. And all of a sudden, you can. It's like I almost poked it. I poked that bear. I couldn't put the finger back then. Even today, I'm not quite sure, but something was different after my army service.
After 3 years of poking the bear in New York City, it was time for Eran to figure out what to do next. Sometimes the most important decisions in life aren't made with certainty. They're made with a mix of doubt and determination, and just enough stubbornness to burn the bridges behind you. That's how it was for Eran when he found himself staring down two paths. One that led him back to Israel, and one that led him to a new life in Canada. Canada, in Eran's mind, was never the plan. It was more like the default that happened when every other option was exhausted. But when his old high school girlfriend resurfaced, complete with a Canadian passport, suddenly the path forward seemed clearer. Okay, he thought, Toronto it is. That's how he ended up in Toronto, still trying to figure out what to do with his life. And if you were to look at Eran back then, you'd see a guy who seemed, well, kind of lost. The first few years were rough. Toronto may have been a new city, but for Eran, it felt like an extension of the confusion he had left behind in New York. No plan, no direction, just a vague idea that he needed to make some money and figure out what he wanted to do when he grew up. But there was something else. The realization that, like it or not, he was not going back to Israel. That door was closed, or so he thought. And maybe it was that finality that pushed him forward. The idea that if he was going to do this, he had to do it all the way. No backup plan, no safety net, just Toronto and the resolve to make it work. This is the thing about Eran. He doesn't make decisions based on what's easiest. In fact, his strategy is almost the opposite.
I figure when you're not sure, if you're debating between two choices, you're not sure which one is the right one. Ask yourself, which one is the harder? The harder one is usually the right one. So I burned those bridges. I'm not going back to Israel. I'm giving myself like a full extended chance to become the best version of myself.
So he stayed. He dug in, even as the first 3 years blurred by without much to show for it, just a lot of false starts and empty bank accounts. But going back to Israel, that would have been easy. And for Eran, easy was not an option. Things moved fast. Eran met a business partner, and they launched a locksmith business that took off. Before long, they were expanding. Ottawa, Calgary, Edmonton, until they were a nationwide operation. The money was intense, but so was the pressure. And then
I became a father. That changed everything in me. For the first time in, I don't know, for as long as I can remember, I felt afraid, fragile. All of a sudden I had something to lose. I didn't really know how to comprehend that. Like I didn't know what to do with it. Like all of a sudden, live for someone, something bigger and more important than yourself. It changed everything. That's exactly when I started getting different symptoms in my sleep, for example, and I felt the responsibility. It was like a new role that I had to be great at. Other people now rely on me. I wasn't living for myself all of a sudden.
The combination of the vulnerability of fatherhood and running what was quickly expanding into a large company triggered the PTSD once again. Nightmares, disassociation, depression, anger, all of it comes rushing back. His wife started suggesting therapy for the PTSD, but Eran wasn't ready to deal with it. For him, everything was always about taking responsibility for himself. If something was wrong, he would fix it. It took him time, but he realized that it wasn't about fixing himself. It was about doing the right thing for his daughters, his wife, and his family. Therapy wasn't a surrender or an admission of defeat. It was just the next step. Here's the thing about Eran. He doesn't see himself as a victim, not even close. I like being me, he told me. I like the person I grew up to be. He says it with this kind of matter-of-fact acceptance. Not like a boast, but as a reminder that everything he's been through is just part of his story. The funny part, he says, is that he can't even remember who he was before all of it. The person he was before the army, before the PTSD. That's a stranger to him now.
The PTSD, the stuff that you were struggling with, obviously put a lot of stress on the marriage. What happened? How did that kind of play out?
I don't think treatment really worked its magic on me. I don't blame the treatment. I blame me. I mean, it's my responsibility, you know. Everything is my responsibility.
Yes, I know. Everything is my responsibility. It's me. It's on me. There's nobody else to blame.
I'm 100% responsible to the failure of my marriage. I simply wasn't there. Not mentally, sometimes not physically. My ex is a great person. She's a great mother. Always try to make it as comfortable as possible for everybody. Really, all she really wanted is for us to be happy, me and the girls. I couldn't pull it off.
Eventually, the pressure was too much, and they decided to separate. But even then, Eran took it all on himself.
One of the most brutal moments, I remember when we told the girls. I think this moment is qualified being just as traumatic as battlefield. All of a sudden, after years of being in Canada, I experienced it again. Traumatic event. I saw what it did to them. And again, I'm always responsible.
And again, I'm always responsible. Okay, moving ahead, I directed the conversation towards October 7th. I wanted to hear from him what his experience was like. An Israeli, a former soldier who had resettled far away from the chaos. And yet, as any Israeli living abroad will tell you, you never really leave. Israel's always home.
This event belongs to me just like it belongs to any other Israeli out there. I've been away from Israel for 20 years and it didn't really matter. I mean, I could be at the other side of the ocean. It doesn't matter. It's my home. It's mine. For me, it was October 6th. It was 11:30 p.m. I was putting my girls to sleep. One of them woke up. I went upstairs. I just lay right next to her. Usually takes a couple of minutes till she falls asleep, and while I'm lying there, I get a text message from a close friend from Kibbutz Be'eri. And the message says, terrorists in the kibbutz. Well, my first reaction was, okay, how bad could it be, right? So, yeah, I mean, 1, 2, 3 terrorists. We'll eliminate that in minutes and hopefully no casualties and we'll, back to normal. I didn't even reply. I was waiting till my daughter would fall asleep to, go back down and kind of text her back and a phone starts ringing. And then again and again and again. Enormous amount of people calling. I'm like, okay, that's not normal. Yeah, I went back down and the TV was open already, so first image I saw was the The white pickup truck. Everybody remembers this one. Once I saw that, I couldn't know the scale, but I knew right away that something very different and odd is now taking place. Right then, I started to run some thoughts in my mind. What's going to be my part in it?
Eran spent the next couple of weeks, like most of us, just confused, trying to figure out how to help. He raised a bunch of money for soldiers, collected and sent a ton of equipment to Israel, but that wasn't going to satisfy his need to play a bigger role.
Experiencing it through a TV screen, it just felt wrong. It drove me nuts.
One thought kept coming back. It wouldn't leave him alone. How do I go and fight for my country? I need to go back and fight. But by now, Eran had been out of the IDF for over 20 years. No reserve unit, no ties. As far as the army knew, he didn't even exist. He's 43 years old, and he hasn't lived in Israel for over 2 decades. But with the atrocities that Hamas committed, the massacre, the raping and brutal murdering of babies, and the taking of over 250 hostages into Gaza, staying in Toronto just became a non-option for him.
We supposed to be afraid because they're capable of chopping heads and throw babies into ovens. That meant to scare us. We were supposed to look at it and say, it's worse than a horror movie. I don't want any part in it. But the funny thing is, all of a sudden people couldn't imagine being somewhere else. They made us go there. They made me go there.
They, meaning Hamas. In his mind, it wasn't even a choice. Hamas had made that decision for him. There was no way that he could stay out of it.
People begged to be recruited. People left everything just to fight this unseen evil that's now knocking on our doors in our backyard. And it's our responsibility to wipe it off.
So you make this decision. You've succeeded in getting yourself recruited to come fight in this war. But it's not a decision that only affects you. Tell me about when you told your girls that you were going, and how did they respond? What was that conversation like? And when you think about it now, how does that make you feel when you think about that moment?
Yeah, I think that was, for me, one of the biggest cost of going to war. Like, it wasn't just me. I made them part of this once I decided to do that. After basic due diligence, when I realized it's actually possible, and I started the process, I figured it's time to let them know. I kind of called them to the living room and I kind of said that I got something to tell you. I tried not to make a big deal out of it. They're 14, 10, and 7, right? So every age has its own way of presenting this kind of information. So I kind of wanted to start by doing it pretty dry. So I told them that, that after everything that's going on and Israel is home and I feel like I'm somewhat needed. And so Abba decided that I'm going to go and help the army a little.
I was really curious to hear from Eran's daughters directly. How did all of this impact them? So Eran called up his oldest daughter, Dani, who's 14, and discussed some of these moments with her. The recording is pretty low tech, sort of like the sound quality of my first podcast, the one I made when I was 9. But the message is strong. Let's listen to Eran speaking to Dani.
You said, I was thinking about maybe joining to help the Army a little bit. And not only did I not think much of it, I never thought it would be like fighting or anything, but I didn't even think it would happen. I thought it was just like an idea. And I thought that after I'd say that I don't want you to go, you wouldn't go.
You should have seen their faces at the same moment. What do you mean you're going to help the Army? You already served in the Army. Yeah, well, we don't get to choose when the danger knocks on our door, It's not a regular event. It doesn't happen every day. It's a different time. This one is different, and I could help. I need to help. I'm needed. I didn't want to let them know like a day before I leave, so I wanted to plant the idea. And they couldn't let it go. I
remember when you were already in Israel, the first phone call we made, you told us the story about what happened with your phone, got stolen and you were about to miss your flight. And even though you were calling us from there, and I knew you were there, I was hoping that in some point in the story, you'd say that you missed your flight. And I was actually expecting you to say, and then I missed my flight, but I knew you were there, so I don't know what I was thinking.
You were still hoping for a different ending, even though you knew I made it to Israel by now.
Yeah.
A few days after, the next time they came to visit, my eldest came to me. She's like, I want to talk to you. And then she goes, I thought about it. I don't want you to go. I already served in the Army. And I don't live in Israel. I live in Canada. And I got a responsibility for my 3 daughters. Abba, you can't just leave. What about us? And then she punched me in the face by asking, is the country more important than us?
Okay, so what happens next? Eran hugs and kisses his 3 daughters, tells them not to worry, he'll be back soon. He jumps on a plane, he reports to a new unit, made up of special forces reservists from different units, assembled to go into the ground battle starting in northern Gaza. But first, intensive training.
We felt the magic right away. We were ecstatic. I remember the moment I wore those uniforms again. After 20 years, it almost felt like a dream come true. And it hit me that I thought to myself how many people had to die for me to have this opportunity. And then I realized that that's part of the magic. It starts with a disaster. What happens next? That's our moment. That's where we shine. That's where you see the magic. From the comfort of Toronto to abandoned houses in 110 degrees of unbearable heat, where mice crawled over me as I lay on the floor trying to get some sleep. Where there was no day, no night, where we had to literally take salt pills just to stay conscious, where shooting never stopped, and losing focus for even a second wasn't an option. That was not less than surreal. And once again, I felt the roulette. I felt that lack of control. I felt like I cannot tell for sure that I'm going to be able to get back to my daughters, because not everything was up to me. And then I thought, if they knew what I felt, if my daughters knew that that was the situation, how angry they must have been with me. I also realized how much of a gap exists between what really happens in Gaza and what the public knows. I think there's a lot of room for interpretation when you get your information through the media. And naturally, not everything they're able to tell. And every morning, you open a TV and it starts by them pronouncing of more casualties. Some part of the public got the feeling like this big, giant, heavy, strong IDF is being fooled and being tricked and being challenged by this small terror organization. That couldn't be further from the truth. You do not conduct a war without casualties. There's no such thing, especially when the place is surrounded by terrorists. But nothing could have stopped the IDF machine. Look at the numbers of the casualties and do the percentages, and you realize that this war was not really a match. When you zoom out, the people of Israel are having a very hard time losing soldiers because they're our kids. Every soldier that got killed is someone's son. There are no mercenaries in the IDF. It's the people of Israel. It's very hard for us to comprehend losses among the army. But that doesn't mean that the army not doing its job. It doesn't mean that the army is not strong enough. The army completed every single mission it had, and every single mission it got from people in charge. The IDF was at its finest. And I've seen young soldiers, we used to call them the TikTok generation.
What he's referring to here is that big question that had been on the minds of the older generation of Israelis, the ones who fought in Israel's heroic wars and put their lives on the line over and over again on behalf of the people. And that was, are the young men and women of this new generation strong enough, brave enough to do the same? Or have they become too soft, more interested in their social media than defending the borders of Israel? The fear, in a nutshell, have they become the TikTok generation?
TikTok my ass. No Hamas terrorist would want to meet them in an alley, because it never ended well for those terrorists. These kids were just unbelievable. They did what they had to do. They did it in a very professional way. They proudly took on every mission in collaboration between units with faith and belief, knowing we're doing the right thing.
Their first mission in the Netzarim corridor was a tremendous success. and after some well-deserved time off, they started preparing for their second mission, Rafah.
Rafah was a totally different story. Looks different. Mission was different. Rafah looked like Armageddon. I remember going in Rafah for the first time. I looked around and I wasn't sure what was more shocking. The scale of the destruction, or the fact that whoever lives here still don't feel like they lost. What more can you take from them? There's no logic behind it. They don't share our standard. They had every opportunity to make this place the Las Vegas of the Middle East. They're not only invested in nothing but killing our children, they also force us to kill theirs. The last day of the operation in Rafah, the day before, I'm on the phone with my daughters, as I do every day that I get to be available. I wasn't available every day. Naturally, when you go in, it's. I was trying to find even a few minutes every day or every other day just to show myself. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes they didn't hear from me for a week or two straight. Most of the time I could. I was talking to my eldest, and we happened to talk about, Baba, when are you coming to Canada? And then I say to her, tomorrow is our last day on this mission in this place. I'll finish tomorrow. I'll head home. I'll book a ticket, and I'll call you to let you know when am I going to land. So just sleep tight. We'll talk tomorrow, and I'll let you know when.
It was the last day of the mission. The last day. In a few hours, it would all be over, and he'd be on a plane flying back to hug his daughters. Only that's not what happened. At this point in our discussion, Eran becomes very vague. When I try to push him a little bit more for a few more details, he smiles and shook his head. What he told me, all he would tell me, was that there was an unintentional discharge. That's Army talk for saying that one of his fellow soldiers accidentally fired a round from his rifle and it hit him. Here's how he describes it.
Last day of the operation, we were quite unlucky. I'll just mention that it's part of the statistics, but I never thought that wasn't part of the plan for me. In general, it has been unintentional discharge. As I like to say, a very friendly fire. When you deal with many different kind of weapons, and they go from hand to hand, and you use them a lot, and it's something that became a routine. Statistically, it happens all the time. We had few incidents like this one before that nobody really knows of because nothing happened. It's a war. It's not a, bullet fly everywhere all the time. This time I was just unlucky. A bullet was fired accidentally. And it's from a very close range, just went straight through my leg, around the hip, above the knee. I realized what happened right away. First thing that popped into my mind was my daughter. She's waiting for me to call her and tell her when I'm coming back home. Well, it's gonna be a totally different phone call right now.
It was actually that was the day with the Iranian attack and stuff, and you didn't answer the phone, so I freaked out. I didn't know what to think, because in Israel nothing is 100% safe, and knowing that it was a big mess and you weren't answering the phone, I panicked. So I actually went to my mom, to Ima, and I told her that I'm really worried, and she knew, but she also knew that if she told me and I wouldn't see you, then I would freak out even more. So she just said that, she's 100% sure that you're okay, and if something really bad would have happened, we would have heard about it. So I knew that was true, so I tried to think about something else, but I still had that panicked feeling. And then the next morning, you were on a call with her on her phone, and I was like, okay, that's not normal. And then when she showed you to us, I immediately knew what happened. But I knew you were injured. I saw you in the gown, so I didn't even need you to tell me. I already knew, but I didn't know how. I didn't know where. I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't know when. I didn't know so many things, but I just saw that you were okay, and you were talking normally, and you were perfectly fine. So then the stress immediately left. I knew you were injured, but I saw that you were actually okay. So I wasn't stressed out anymore, but I didn't know that the treatment would take such a long time, because I didn't really know how bad it was. More than disappointed, I was happy that it wasn't worse. It could have been a lot worse, and it wasn't. And also the thought that you won't be going back also was a good thought, because I've been stressed about it for a while.
I think when it comes to my injury, the real traumatic aspect of it was calling my daughters, saying I'm not going to be there, that there's been a change in plan. I couldn't really care about the injury. I realized what happened right away, and I knew it's gonna take some time, but I'll be fine. I was even even started to laugh a little. Laugh with anger. I mean, laughing, but I was pissed. My daughters did not deserve this one after everything they went through.
So I asked him if he was angry. After all, because of someone else's mistake, he's now facing multiple surgeries, a year or possibly more of rehab, the possibility of losing a leg. Plus, he's not going home now to see his girls anytime soon. By this point, his answer shouldn't surprise us at all.
I took responsibility on the event. As far as I'm concerned, I am the only responsible person.
It wasn't about anger or blame. It was just responsibility. It's on me, he said. There's no one else to blame. And that's the thing about Eran. He's not a hero in his own mind. He's just a guy trying to do the right thing, even if it means paying a price.
I'm not saying it in a heroic way. I did it. It was on me. It was my responsibility.
If you want to be courageous, you have to earn it. You can't just say, oh, I'm not afraid of these things, so I'm brave. You don't even choose to be courageous. It just happens. Something really bad happens, and you don't let that take over your life. You still live normally, and you function properly, and you do what you do every day, even though the worst is happening. And you don't want it to happen. But the small gift you get from that is being courageous, whether you want that gift or not.